Hi, and welcome to the Burgess Yacht Crew podcast. Today, we're welcoming back Melanie White from Marathon for Mental Health.
There's a lot of hard work that goes into getting on a vessel. There's a lot of investment personally for people to try and fit in and make sure they survive and thrive in their working environments, which is very complex in yachting. But, not skirting around these issues allows you to have a really good working culture on board.
Since our last chat, Melanie has been so busy doing some amazing work to help boost the wellbeing support available to crew, including the creation of the How To for Yacht Crew guide. And we are so proud to be partnering with her for the newly updated 2026 edition. The guide was created to help crew understand the support available to them and the steps that they can take to report harassment and abuse in the workplace. And the 2026 edition has been updated to align perfectly with the recent PSSR updates. We chat about all of these topics, including updates on this year's Marathon for Mental Health and what they mean in practice for crew and the wider industry. A really important and timely conversation as our industry continues to evolve, and it's genuinely encouraging to see such meaningful change taking place. Hi Mel, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you, Lorena?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. So, welcome back. When were you last on the podcast?
I think it could be 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, close to 4.
That's a long time, isn't it? And you have been busy, haven't you?
Quite busy. Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, which is exciting and which is why you're here. So thank you for joining us. For anyone listening who's new to the podcast, can you just give us a quick recap on who you are and the projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so I worked as yacht crew throughout all of my 20s, had a wonderful time at sea, but also had some real dips in my mental well-being during my time at sea. And so a lot of my work since transitioning shoreside has been connected to creating mentally healthy spaces for crew, whether they're on board, transitioning ashore, or trying to keep their sanity, I guess, in an industry which is ever challenging. And so one of my key projects that I'm working on at the minute is Marathon for Mental Health, which is a flexible marathon for crew to run, walk or hike the distance of a marathon. And we connect that to mental health resources to keep people well when they step back on board. And also we connect it to a charity called ISWAN, who offer lots of welfare support for crew, but particularly their Yacht Crew Helpline, which offers 24/7 support for crew. So we try and use the marathon to build awareness of what support there is basically for crew to stay well. Yeah, and also founder of the How To for Yacht Crew quick grab guide, which comes with the marathon as well, which I think we'll go into a bit more detail about later.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's interesting. I think we started our first conversation was the book that you wrote, which was very interesting. And actually, for a non-yachty, because I've never worked at sea, gave me a really good insight into what life can actually be like, on board a yacht and the struggles that crew do go through. And I guess at the time, is it fair to say that there was less support and less conversations around mental health? But it's building, isn't it?
It's building. I think there's less questioning over what mental health actually is and more kind of appetite for action, to be honest. So I feel like, and a lot of that action is actually just signposting people to stuff that already exists, because what you don't know, but there are actually a huge number of resources out there for crew. And it's normally only when things start getting really difficult that you think, oh, actually I might need something, and then you need to know where to look.
Yeah.
Everything really surrounding this project is trying to make sure that when people do need to look, if anything, they're already party to that information.
And it really helpfully coincides with the new updates with the PSSR, which came into force this year?
This January, I think they came into force. But it's been slowly working towards coming into force for ages, because as all things with STCW, it happens at a boardroom table and then it trickles down and then it has to be actioned. But there is now SASH training required as part of this PSSR. So that's sexual assault and sexual harassment training, which I hope, there's more recognition now more widely across all seafaring that's required on board to keep people safe. And that's, a great time to kind of upskill basically for everybody to really understand these topics more clearly.
Yeah. And it's through talking about these topics that we all learn, isn't it? Because I do believe and I do hope that a lot of the, let's call it banter that happens, is not intentional. It's just learning. It's learning what is and isn't acceptable and just keeping those conversations going.
Yeah, and actually we do, or at Seize the Mind, we have been working with Emma Bell. We've included some training on banter as part of our IARMI mental wellbeing course, because a lot of things are cloaked in banter on board, and it's actually really helpful to know the different levels of banter, because there's what you're talking about is ignorant banter, right, where you think it's just harmless fun and a joke, but actually has the capacity of causing offence.
Yeah.
And then there's malicious banter, which is different because it is a form of abuse.
Yeah.
And it's quite helpful for people to understand where does this sit and then how to challenge it, which is not easy to do.
No, and I think that's why the guide that you're writing is so interesting and so useful, because it does offer those tips, doesn't it? It gives explicit guidance on what to do if.
Yeah, so how to for Yacht Crew, it's meant to be a quick grab guide, right? So it's not a definitive, you must do this in all situations, but it's there to try and handle topics that are pretty tricky, but with as little, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but as little bullshit as possible, so that crew who are stretched, have a lot of stuff on their plate, if they need to access the information, can do it without streaming through reels and reels of policies that they might understand or they might not.
Yeah.
So through the guide, we have all sorts of sections. So one's how to report abuse and harassment, which is a big one, how to support someone experiencing a panic attack, how to evacuate a crew member in emotional need. Again, something that you go through all of this first aid training, but are you trained to psychologically support somebody on board? No.
Probably not.
If you sort out your mental health first aid qualification, great. It's something we really encourage people to do, but you might need some really pinpoint advice in its first iteration. Of course, this isn't replacing training, this guide, but it is at least giving some people some important information when they might really need it. How to understand the role of insurance, to actually understand your insurance policy on board. So I would only look at my insurance policy if I thought I actually needed it. And in many ways, you kind of need to know what to look for and what might be covered. There's also really nitty-gritty stuff like speaking about suicide, how to speak about suicide, like really important topics that people want to skirt around, but all of these have the capacity of keeping people safe. And so really the guide is here to try and keep people safe on board. And what I'm proud of and what I'm pleased about the guide is that it's been a really collaborative effort. It's not just been a case of one business comes out with this information and then they will peddle that information, but then if you're in a different area, you're not party to that information.
Yeah.
I've worked with various different management companies. Burgess has been a huge part of kind of rolling out the second edition of this guide this year, working with flag states, working with insurance companies, working with mental health professionals to ensure that this information is watertight. No pun intended, actually. That really was no pun intended.
That's a good one. I like
but that really is helpful for crew, because I think if you work in the office, as part of a management company, you probably do know. You say, oh, well, we've already got this in place. But a crew member might not know. And also, a lot of vessels aren't managed. So if this can be on boats as well that don't have management, but you think, oh God, this is abuse and harassment that's going on board, where do I go? You can go somewhere. You just need the information of knowing where to go. And that's why it's so important.
I think there's two things that I really love about it. One is that it is, you're right. As a yacht management company, we do have all of this information already stored in the safety management manual, the crew manual, etc. And we have the policies, we have the procedures, but this is so much more easily accessible to crew. It's a real quick guide to crew to just remind them of these really important topics that I think sometimes maybe, is this fair to say that crew may get so excited at, the job, the position, the yacht, the environment, that they actually maybe don't spend the time to actually focus on the nitty-gritty, and maybe don't actually want to because, maybe it's too big, it's too overwhelming. Whereas this, easily accessible.
Yeah, you could dip into it in the crew mess.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to, it's not going to take you more than a couple of minutes to read each section. You could choose to pick up a section once, even just as part of a safety briefing.
Yeah.
Even if you were doing once a month, like crew meetings, it's like, okay, there's only, this year we've added 3 new sections. One is how to understand your SEA. One's how to support sobriety on board. And another one, oh no, we made revisions. We've got 2 new sections this year. But yeah, there are only 12 sections sections. So actually you can pick this up and digest it very easily as part of your daily working life.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think there's a lot of hard work that goes into getting on a vessel. There's a lot of investment personally for people to try and fit in and make sure they survive and thrive in their working environments, which is very complex in yachting. But, not skirting around these issues allows you to have a really good working culture on board. It's when you can sense things are off, but no one's actually tackling the beast.
Yeah.
And all of these issues start happening.
Yeah.
And inevitably, what's interesting is it normally manifests in, accidents on board, which are treated with kind of the normal kind of level of seriousness. But there's normally all sorts of mental health things that are actually underpinning the issues.
No, absolutely. And it's so important to deal with them and to give crew the access. And that's the other thing that I love about this. There are a lot of topics in here. You mentioned suicidal thoughts, there's eating disorders, there's a lot of topics that we all want to be able to help, but we don't quite know where to start or what to say. We're fearful of saying the wrong thing. Even if you've had mental health first aid training, there's still the nerves of getting it wrong. But this is, again, a useful guide for just how to introduce those topics.
Yeah, and we're not always going to get it right, but I think having something, if we can all agree, okay, well, at least we can look in there, and from there we can do more homework, then great.
Yeah.
But you need to know where to look. And I think this was something that I was finding more and more working kind of with crew and their mental health on board, was they're like, that's great, but we didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you get the information and the awareness there? Because actually a lot of the information is there. It's just getting it in front of them. The same as why we created the marathon to be flexible. These are busy boats, and there's a lot of FOMO. You spend all summer working and then you maybe have a bit of downtime at the end of the season. There's no way you can do a marathon. You're just into yourself. So to create an opportunity where people can go out, get active, try and hit a marathon target over the course of a bit of time, but also give them the resources they need to step back on board and survive another season, is a win-win. And it also creates connections, so that all of a sudden that yacht bubble that feels so intense is broken a bit. And you can kind of find a different community it's probably hopefully there to support you in all those interim difficult spots, which immediately be met in a kind of professional environment.
Yeah, I loved the Marathon for Mental Health. We took part. We were very proud to take part in it. The Burgess crew team took part last year. I loved it because I'm not a runner. I think it's fair to say, I think out of all of us that took part, maybe 75% of us were not runners, but it's, we felt like we were taking part in something and really fun. Also helped promote the seriousness of the message and, promote the handbook and the topic, etc. So it just felt very collaborative, and I loved that.
Yeah. And that was the aim, right? Because I think it's really hard to connect the dots in the industry. Yeah. It's hard to still feel like you're close because it's global. But the tagline, I've got my little cap here. The tagline is feel good, but it genuinely did actually feel good. Yeah. I think because it was built accessibly, it was built with, okay, it doesn't matter if you don't run. Yeah. You can go out and walk it. You can go out and do it as a hike, or you can go out as a run and do part of it. There was ways in which you could build it that was absolutely doable. So yeah, it was really good fun, and I can't wait to do it all again this year.
Yeah. The thing I love about the work that you do, Mel, is just how it's so collaborative across the whole yachting industry. There can always be that sense of competition or, that sense of disagreement maybe on certain topics. But when it comes to mental health and the work that you're doing and the Marathon Mental Health and the handbook and everything, there's just huge collaboration amongst everyone because, ultimately the goal is so unifying and it's what we all want for everyone on board those boats.
Yeah, and I also think something that somebody picked up for me, which I didn't think of as a benefit in the first year, but I kind of just saw it as a thing that surely everyone has anyway. But it was a crew member that was saying, look, I was looking for kind of a moral compass within my career because ultimately this job is luxury hospitality and there is only so much self-worth you're going to attach to your job in terms of making a difference. the great thing was that actually there was something that could connect me to do something morally good for others and to support others and to help by way of, you know, even if it's just one person understands that there is a helpline for them at any time.
Yeah.
That's a complete win. You know, the same as if you're saying as a team, you know, and at Burgess, it's a way of you demonstrating to crew that you do care and that you do X, Y, and Z, and you are willing to kind of, I guess it gives more of a shop window for crew to see all the people shoreside that care about how they are.
Yeah.
And kind of vice versa, where, you know, shoreside, you can be demonstrating and showing, well, we've got this you can use and this you can do. And you know, we've all agreed on how, literally how to, on all of these points.
Yeah.
The information's here. Like, we've all agreed on it, which is no mean feat. And like you say, the competition side, you know, of course there's competition in anything, but ultimately there shouldn't be competition in well-being. It doesn't feel, there's no sense in it, really. There's you know.
But I think that's what's lovely. Yes, there is competition in business. That's normal. That, you know, that is part of every industry, not just the yachting industry. But when it comes to the people, there is real unity, and you, I think, and your team have really helped to, you know, unite everyone to the common good, working with you and, you know, helping with this handbook. So the Marathon for Mental Health, it's happening again this year in October.
It is. And
you've got a few warm-up sessions, I understand?
Yes, we do. So we are going to be at Palmer Boat Show this year, and we are doing a 5K sunrise run for all on Friday, the 1st of May, which is going to be great. And it will kick off the fact that registration is open for the full marathon, which will be in October. And then we also have a hike on the Saturday, which will be just outside the centre, so it's not hard to get to. We'll probably have a central meeting place near the marina and then go out in taxis together, and it's a 5K hike just to get out in nature, have some nice conversations and start limbering up and reminding people that that the marathon's on this year. I'm really excited to see how it grows this year, because it was just a concept effectively at the beginning of 2025. I basically just told people, this is what I'm going for, knocked on a million doors saying, do you want to run, walk, or hike a marathon over October? And managed to rally 100 registrations, but by the end of October we'd had 260 people participate. So I'm really, really hopeful that obviously it's easier to then build something now where people can see its work the first time round. So hopefully this year we can build on that number. And these
things build momentum, don't they? Yeah. So we can at least double it. Come on, people.
Exactly. I really feel hopeful that we can. And I also think the difficult thing is it's once a year. So it's kind of a bit of out of sight, out of mind for people. But I do really believe that it's like, okay, no, but this is what happened last year. Like, we can bring that feeling back again. Let's just try and get back behind it at a sensible time this year, so that I'm not working hell for leather in September.
So where would, if anyone listening is interested in either the warm-up sessions in Palma or a registration of the main event, where would they get access to the details for that?
So follow Marathon4, but spelled FOR _mental health on Instagram, or find us on our website www.marathonformentalhealth.com, because we will list registration for those in-person 5Ks, but also the registration for the full marathon through that website. So that will be, the full registrations open in the 1st of May. But we will want people to sign up for the in-person 5Ks, because it's likely that, well, we have some goodies to give away, but we only have so many. So the first 30 that register will get some bag.
That's exciting. Something for the listeners. First 30, get in there quick. When you look at the guide and the marathon and all the work that you've done, what's the one message you'd love crew to take into this year?
I guess I would like people that think that maybe it's not for them just to give it a try. Because I think there is a real power in unity, and you can say, oh, I don't really think that's for me. I think some people maybe are a bit like, oh yeah, marathon, I don't do marathons. But actually, how it's broken up is absolutely doable. And I think there are really unusual benefits to kind of stepping into this community we've built. Definitely last year I had somebody that was like, oh yeah, send it for this team, but I won't do it because I'm not a runner. And I was like, oh, I'll send you a cap anyway. And I did. And they had a big big upset happen in their life, and they literally took the hat and they were like, right, and they did the whole marathon walking over the course of kind of 8 or 9 days, I think, taking breaks because they were still, the wheel had to continue turning in their life, but they had to try and process this big life event. And the marathon was there at the right place, right time for them to be able to just actually get out and process that information. And I think there are all sorts of benefits to walking side by side with people as opposed to sticking in your head. And certainly when it comes to the guide, the information is there because it's literally just the information I would have wanted at my deepest, darkest times on board. And I think if this guide can be in the right hands at the right time, it's worth printing 1 million copies, to be honest.
Absolutely. I think from my point of view is normalising speaking up. That if you saw something, if you witnessed something in the street that was awful, you would speak up. And we just want to normalise that in yachting. There shouldn't be an exception on certain behaviours just because it's yachting. It's one of my least favourite things I hear. Oh, it's yachting. No, that doesn't work anymore. And if people feel uncomfortable, should be allowed to speak up.
Yeah, I think actually speaking up without fear of anything happening is really difficult to do, but it's really important to do.
Yeah.
One of the most important things I think in terms of speaking up is that fear barrier you have to get through. It's really uncomfortable. I think even if it's challenging in a situation where you're challenging someone else's behaviour, okay, if you've got really abusive people on board, that's a really tricky position to be in. If it's about challenging banter, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's absolutely doable. So there are obviously times where it's safe to do so and unsafe to do so. And I guess you have to walk that line of what's safe and what's not. But I definitely think that speaking up is really important. And there are also really good things to be taking part in order to build the picture of yachting as it is today. So Yacht Pearls of Wisdom's survey that they currently have out at the moment, it is a women's only survey, and I feel quite certain that there will be a male one at another time. But it gives people past and present who have been crew to properly document and explain any form of sexual assault or abuse they've experienced on board without fear of reproach, because of course it's an anonymous survey, but it really allows, and I guess it empowers people to be able to speak about what has happened. I spoke to Charisse yesterday and they're on 600 responses.
Wow.
I know they want to get to 2,000 because then it is a meaningful data set. So I would say to anybody who's listening that has experienced anything on board, either during their time at sea and they're no longer at sea, or if it's currently happening on board, to answer that survey so that there's a proper picture that we can say, okay, well, actually, you could even map out in time, okay, what was it like 10 years ago? What's it like now? But they need the data set. So that's another way to speak up. If you're feeling like you can't do it on board right now, there are some really important causes where you can speak up and it really make impact.
Yeah. And where can they find that survey?
You can find it if you search Yacht Pearls of Wisdom through Instagram.
Yeah.
The survey will be linked there. And maybe we can put it in the show notes of this podcast so that people can contribute.
Definitely. Oh, that's so interesting. It's so many different resources for crew and so many different people coming together with the same goal. It's fabulous. I just going back to the PSSR, the updates and the regulations, I read a really good summary of what the changes in the PSSR mean and why they've introduced them in one of the M notices. And it's the fundamental goal is to ensure seafarers understand the serious nature of their behaviours, the profound impact they have on individuals and ship safety, and their role in promoting a culture of dignity and respect on board. I mean, it just sums it up beautifully, doesn't it?
I think dignity and respect, oh my God,
it's what we all crave.
That's all a human needs, right?
Yeah.
And I do think any form of abuse and harassment is dehumanizing. That's what makes it so painful. And you're right in your point of, well, people say, oh, well, that's yachting. Yeah, it's not good enough to be like, oh, well,
no,
it happens on board, stays on board. That can't be the case.
No.
And it's good that, clearly that's come through MCA. There are clear signposts of, the important flag states saying this doesn't sit and it doesn't land.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's so positive when the regulations start changing and getting, updated to work with the times. I think that's a really important step in the right direction. Mel, I say it again, I think the work that you guys are doing is wonderful. Thank you so much on behalf of everyone, and thank you for letting us be a part of it, because we really enjoyed working with you on the handbook, really enjoyed the Marathon for Mental Health. We will be taking part again this year. So yeah, thank you for everything. And yeah, we'll be in touch with all crew on Burgess Managed Yachts with link to the handbook or actual copies of the handbook. So we'll be circulating it in various different methods. So thank you, Mel. And let's not leave it 4 years next time.
Yeah. Hopefully sooner than that.
Thank you, Mel.